The BMore Football Podcast is brought to you by Rice Law.
Welcome. It is the BMore Football Podcast presented by Rice Law. I'm Jerry Coleman. He is a longtime Baltimore Sun sports columnist. His name is Mike Preston. And each week, folks, we'll be here to discuss all things happenings with the Baltimore Ravens and the National Football League and look ahead to what is next. You can find our podcasts on YouTube, on X, on Instagram, and on Facebook, and Spotify and Apple Podcasts at BMore Sports Pod is where you want to subscribe. Please subscribe. And you can also watch us, as always, at BaltimoreSun.com. We welcome that. Today, in our first episode, Mike, we will get to our backgrounds covering the Ravens. We'll then tell you what our expectations are for this year's club. What are the team's strengths and weaknesses? Also, we'll take a glance around the NFL, specifically at the AFC North, the division the Ravens, of course, have played in for quite some time. And we'll talk about some of the bad teams in the NFL. And Mike, well, no time for his report card this week or next week, but once the games get going, we'll get to the report card. How are you feeling, Presto?
I feel pretty good, man. I'm excellent. How about yourself?
I'm doing fine, man. We have been talking about doing this podcast for a while, and finally it's come to fruition. So let's talk a little bit about our backgrounds. You've been with the Sun for not 100 years yet, not as long as they've been around, but seemingly almost forever.
Actually, 2 weeks ago, it was 42 years. I've been at the Sun for 42 years, and I've been covering the NFL since 1987. And give you a little history, in 87, the New York Giants win the Super Bowl. All right. And the first game I ever covered was the Giants versus the Dallas Cowboys. And what happened was they hadn't won a game, and they lose that one, 16-14. I go in the locker room after the game, and there's this blood all over the place. And I made a list of all the guys that were sitting there. It was Carl Banks, Harry Carson, Pepper Johnson, Lawrence Taylor. All of them in a row. And they had blood all over their uniforms, and they had just lost. And it was my welcome to the NFL moment. I just walked in and just started asking them questions. And I think most of the New York media people were like, who's this guy? We've never seen him before. But I was just stopping in. And it was a great day, great moment to be in the locker room. And I've been doing it ever since.
Well, I'll tell you, one of my welcome to the NFL moments occurred in the early 90s. Of course, the Colts had already left town, so I was stuck covering that football team they used to call the Redskins down the road. And I didn't realize that in the NFL, there was no pregame access. Somehow, I was able to get into the Washington team locker room before the game. And I'm walking around until 2 minutes into my journey, someone says, "Who the F are you? What are you doing in here? You're with the media? Get out of here." And they escorted me out of the locker room. I got reprimanded when I went up to the press box, and I didn't realize there was no pregame access in the NFL.
Well, Jerry, I thought maybe they might have thought you were the place kicker, the punter, one of those guys. You fit right in, right?
Towel boy for just a half second until they realized I was wearing a media credential. But
right.
Listen, both of us have a lot of intel, a lot of sources going on for 30 years now inside that castle, and we look forward, I should say, to sharing that inside and unparalleled access with Ravens fans. We both have plenty of dealings with the Ravens over the years. I mean, going back to Brian Billick and now with Coach Harbaugh, and especially at the press conferences, going back to Billick and even Harbaugh, they've always been a lot of fun with these two.
Well, you can even take it back further because remember, Ted Marchibroda was the first coach.
Yeah.
And Ted would come into press conferences and kind of forget what was going on, and we'd have to remind him a little bit. But overall, he was the best coach as far as X's and O's. I think Brian Billick provided that spark, that shot of adrenaline that the team needed. Because remember, had Billick written all across those boards. And then all of a sudden, John Harbaugh, who is probably the best coach overall as far as X's and O's, mechanics, and building team chemistry, he's the best guy. But they've had three pretty good successful coaches.
Definitely. A lot of stability, just like with the Steelers. And right behind Mike Tomlin is John Harbaugh, longest tenured coach in the NFL. All right, Mike, let's take a look back at last season and how things ended and the main changes that were made within the organization. Let's begin with the coaching staff, because gone is last year's assistant head coach and pass game coordinator, Chris Hewitt. Your interpretation to what happened there?
He just figured out he didn't know what he was doing. I mean, Chris Hewitt's a good guy, but as far as looking at their secondary and what was going on there, the missed coverages, blown coverages, the long balls given up, they had to make changes. And they did, and they made changes. The linebacker coach, connections there also. But those were things they had to make. They had to do to get better, and they've done that. Now, does it translate into victories? We'll find out, because we don't know for sure, but they've upgraded. And Chuck Pagano, the secondary coach, great move by the team, great move by the organization. He should improve the secondary coverage.
Yeah, it says something that most of the changes, if not all, were on the defensive side of the ball, and especially in the secondary and the linebacker core, where it seemed like it was a weakness at times last season.
Well, when you had the number one running game, you have Lamar Jackson coming back, a two-time MVP. You have Derrick Henry coming back. I mean, all they did was they just made sure they gave contracts to the right guys. Fullback Patrick Ricard, Ronnie Stanley gets a new deal. Derrick Henry got a new deal, and they'll eventually work out one with Lamar Jackson as well. So they're on the right course there, but defensively, they had to upgrade and they had to make some changes, and they've done that, and we'll see what happens on the field.
Now, offensively, the Ravens have added veteran wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins, 1 year, $6 million. I think we agree he is a future Hall of Fame wide receiver. But, boy, they've been treating him with kid gloves, just like Odell Beckham Jr., it seems, because he hasn't practiced a whole lot during training camp. But I'm sure he'll be ready for week one, despite missing a lot of time.
Hey, he's a veteran. Veterans don't like to practice. I mean, you get 8 or 9 years in the league, you take a couple days off. That happens. Alexander, their new corner that picked up from Green Bay. When was the last time he practiced? It's been about 2 weeks. They don't show up. Mark Andrews took a day off last week. It happens, and it will continue to happen because that's what veterans do. They really don't want to go through training camp. And Jerry, to be honest, we really don't want to go out there and watch all of that stuff either. So that's just the way it goes.
Now, that's why we waited until that miserable preseason is over to commence our first podcast. But they also drafted the safety out of Georgia, Malachi Starks, looking to bolster that secondary. You mentioned Jair Alexander. He's only missed 34 of his last 68 games, so he's got an immense injury history. So one young, one new there in the secondary, Mike.
Starks can play. That kid can get after it, and he's very smart. And you see him on the back end. They don't put him up around the line of scrimmage. That's Kyle Hamilton's position, to be around there and to get after the quarterback. But Starks just reading and seeing what's going on and being able to drop back and play in that deep third, that's a major, major asset for this team, especially after last season when they gave up a lot of long passes earlier in the year. But then they got a little bit better. But this guy can get after it, and I'm pretty sure Monken gave him a nice recommendation having played with him in Georgia.
No doubt about that. Your level of concern with Alexander, though, and his injury history, as you mentioned, he's been limited already in camp. Maybe they're just saving him.
I don't know about saving him. You know, I like to see him get out there and practice a little bit more and get after it. The key to this thing, and the same thing with Hopkins, is what happens to these guys late in the season. They're going to come out and they're going to be on fire. They're going to play well early. But when it starts getting cold and the weather starts to change, and you get later into the season, what happens? And you see the same thing with rookies. I mean, they go through that entire collegiate season. Then they go to the bowl game. Then they go to the combine. Then they go to OTAs. Then they play the season. And then they get to game 12 and 13. And all of a sudden, I'm getting a little tired. It happens. And with the veterans, it's the same thing. That's what you have to watch.
All right, the next addition I wanted to talk about is Tyler Loop. Pretty cocky for a rookie kicker. I've heard this guy talk in interviews and away from the field at times, showing how much muscle he has in his arms, which I don't know how that translates into great punts, or kicks, I should say. But he was highly sought after. by this team. And kicking expert Randy Brown detailed his journey to pursue this kid. I guess he has to be the solution because Justin Tucker ain't walking through that door.
Well, I don't want to hear all of this crap about this kid. You draft a kicker. You took him in the 6th round, 5th round, 6th round. You know he was going to make the team. They brought in another guy to come in to compete with him just to tighten up the pressure a little bit. But, as soon as they got him in, like 3 days later, they cut Justin Tucker. That tells you something right there. They just said, uh-oh, he's got that explosiveness off his foot. He can kick the ball. And then a week later, they just keep moving along. And then the guy, he's very good. Cocky, you better be cocky because it's the National Football League. I mean, quarterbacks are cocky, head coaches are cocky, and kickers, you better be cocky to survive in this league.
I mean, he gave John Harbaugh a big bro hug before the final preseason game. I've never seen a rookie dap up with a coach like that, especially a kicker before a game, but there it was anyway.
Hey, when you lose Justin Tucker, you can hug him all you want. That's a great hug because he's signing the paycheck, man.
That's true. All right, let's looking ahead and start right now to this upcoming season because the expectations are sky high for what? A third or maybe fourth straight year in a row. We hear Super Bowl or bust. Are the expectations realistic? And I will say this to you. We have covered both Super Bowl winning Ravens teams. Neither, when the season began, was thought of as a Super Bowl contender. It was a late season run for both occasions. I mean, back in the day, it was the Patriots or the Raiders or another team, maybe the Titans that was favored more so than the Ravens, but somehow the Ravens won 2 Lombardi trophies. Now they come in again with these high expectations, said to be the greatest roster on paper in Ravens history. Now they have to do it.
It is the greatest roster in Ravens history. I've covered every team. So I would agree with that. I mean, if you look at the upgrades on defense and you look at their offense, I mean, they got the best group of receivers they've ever had. They got a quarterback who's a 2-time MVP. They got one of the best running backs in Derrick Henry in modern day football. All right. They have all of these things in place. The problem is and I'll say it, they choke. They don't get it done. I mean, if you go back to the Kansas City game 2 years ago at the championship here, they lose 17-10, 3 turnovers. They go play Buffalo last year in Buffalo, 3 turnovers. They kill themselves. And is it in their heads? Oh, you're darn right it's in their head. It better be in their heads because that's what you think about. It's what's stopping us from getting to the Super Bowl. It's because we kill ourselves. All right. And they know that and they have to fix it. Is there pressure? You're darn right there's pressure, but it should be because you have to live up to those expectations. You have to play extremely well and your quarterback has to play well. And until that happens, they're just treading water because every year they fall short. But keep up the heat, keep up the pressure. The expectations are there. Now, do they live up to them? We'll find out in January and February.
Yeah, because the Ravens season, you can't say the regular season is meaningless. It never is. They have to qualify for the playoffs and maybe home field advantage, but people won't care if this team goes 14-3 or 12-5. They'll care what happens again in those 2 months you just referenced.
Well, the thing is, the key to it is to play at home. You don't want to go to Buffalo. Nobody wants to go to Buffalo.
No, ever.
January and February, period. And Jerry, you have a history with the Bills, so you know how that goes. But still, you want to be at home. And they had that 2 years ago. It didn't happen. And they can only look at themselves and say, we killed ourselves. All right. Does that change this year? We'll find out. But again, it all comes down to, do you gain home field advantage? And when you get here, do you play well? And that's part of it. And again, the Bills were at home. They got a nice boost from the crowd. They were excited to play. And remember, the Ravens had blown them out earlier in the season. And all of a sudden, they're like, no, we have something to prove. We want to show that we belong. Well, we'll see what happens. And we'll see what happens early because they play them the first game.
This is our For the Birds portion. We continue, again, presented by our friends over at Rice Law. For the best advice, call Rice. All right, let's get into some of the strengths and weaknesses of this team. Supposedly, as you said, the best Ravens roster on paper in team history. You already agreed to that. But the strengths for me, obviously, begin with the run game, with Lamar and Derrick Henry. But then you throw in Justice Hill and Keaton Mitchell. And I don't know if they're going to keep a fourth running back, but that trio I named, and you can add Lamar and maybe Patrick Ricard in there. I mean, the first three that I mentioned in Henry, Hill, and Mitchell, to me, is the best trio of running backs they have in the NFL.
Yeah, and what you have in it, if you go a little bit deeper, you have a third down back, all right? And then you have a change of pace back in Mitchell. Those are the ingredients that you need. So if Derrick Henry gets a little tired or fatigued, then all of a sudden you got Mitchell coming in. That's Mr. Energy. All right. So he can pop outside. You can do the tosses and so forth. And then third down situations, you just throw it to the back out of the backfield. And that fits their MO right now. And we'll see a little bit more different, and they'll jazz it up a little bit in the regular season. But that fits for them and their scheme. And one thing that we haven't talked about, their receivers are pretty good blockers. To have the number one running game for 2 years in a row, you better have receivers who can block on the outside. They can get it done, and they do extremely well.
All right, besides the offense, what do you view, Presto, as some of the strengths on this team?
Defense, the defensive line, they can get big, even though they lost Michael Pierce. They got
him? Do you think they've adequately replaced him with Travis Jones, Mike, or to be determined?
Travis Jones is a monster. He can play. Oh, he can get after it. He's going to play very well. It's in his fifth year. That's when you see these guys who are in the league for the first time. They start maturing. They start playing well. Travis Jones is going to do a nice job. I think their run defense is sound. I'm not sure about the back end, though. You can bring in all of these guys you want, but can they mix and can they match? We don't know. And everyone keeps saying, oh, they have the best secondary. Well, prove it. Show it. All right? Because it's one thing to have it on paper, but then to put it on the field, that's different. And until they get out there and they play as a group. And then remember, Jerry, they haven't played as a group in a game yet. All right, the preseason games, they're a wash. All right, we don't care about those. But to get out there and do it in a regular season game, we'll see. Loop, all right, great preseason. But what happens when you get out there and all those fans of Pittsburgh are yelling and screaming at you and the pressure's on you to kick it and to win in Pittsburgh? We'll see what happens. And still, they don't have the return guy. Wester has shown he's okay in game one, but in the last two games, not there. So I would say those are the weaknesses as well as their strengths that we pointed out. But who knows? You never know until they play.
Now, you didn't mention the offensive line. You're very comfortable with the way things have gone there during camp. They're bringing back 4 or 5 starters. I guess left guard is still a position battle between Voorhees and Cleveland.
They have no depth. The guys they brought in, the rookie class, those are guys who are basically projects. And if they lose 1 or 2 of those guys, they're in trouble. All right. And if they can't run the football, they're in trouble because they're not a good pass blocking group. They can say whatever they want. And I know better. Because if you go back and you look at the tape, all right, watch Lamar Jackson and the way he runs around and scrambles and make plays. And we can go back to the Kansas City game 2 years ago. We can go back to the Buffalo game last year. And that game in the second half where he starts to light it up and warm up a little bit, he's scrambling around and making plays. Pass blocking is not their forte. He has those big overhaulers, maulers on the front line. And that's great if you can run the ball and mix in the play action game. But if you can't, that's trouble.
More of the BMore Football Podcast right after this.
At Rice Law, we've won millions for our injury clients, taken on the biggest insurance companies, and fought in the toughest courtrooms, and made it clear, strong lawyers win strong cases. But none of that matters today. The only case that matters is yours. your fight, your future. And we're ready to go to battle for you. We don't rest on past victories. We fight every case like it's our only one. Because at Rice Law, the most important victory is the one we win for you.
Rice Law. Best advice, call Rice.
Shop Maryland's largest adult use and medical cannabis menu located at 1114 Cathedral Street in Baltimore, with medical delivery available throughout Maryland 7 days a week, only at Relief Shop.
For the last 25 years, Wood Home Insurance has been Baltimore's premier independent home, auto, and business insurance broker, representing over 30 carriers. For example, need an auto quote? Wood Home shops them all. Geico, Progressive, Travelers, AAA, Safeco, and Selective, and sends you back the best rates possible. I have personally been a client for over 2 decades, and they are world-class in service. Wood Home's owner, Rich Gottlieb, is happy to schedule a Zoom appointment with you at your convenience. Oh, and Rich is a longtime Ravens season ticket holder, so when at the game, let him know where you're tailgating. He'll drop by and say hello. So for all your needs, it's Wood Home Insurance, 410-580-2800 or woodhomeinsurance.com.
Meet the newest member of the Jack Daniels family, Jack Daniels Tennessee Blackberry. Jack Daniels takes pride in Old Number 7 being the backbone of all our flavors, and Jack Daniels Blackberry is no exception. A combination of our proprietary black liqueur and Jack Daniels' unique and unmistakable character, Jack Blackberry is a highly versatile juxtaposition of flavor. Delightfully sweet, bold, vibrant, and refreshing, Jack Blackberry is easily enjoyed with your favorite mixer, in a cocktail, or while enjoying your next football game. Jack Daniels Tennessee Blackberry is here, and as always, Jack Daniels reminds you to drink responsibly. When it comes to financial planning, most of us need help. The team at the Jim Kelly Financial Group has been offering sage advice for Marylanders for more than 30 years, like the Baltimore Sun's Mike Preston. But Jim Kelly offers value beyond sound investment management through tax-efficient strategies, behavioral coaching during market downturns, guidance on major life decisions, from career changes to elder care planning, as well as life insurance. This is where experienced financial advisors like Jim Kelly and the professional money management he provides can make all the difference. Call today and see if the Jim Kelly Financial Group can help you and your family at 410-486-5575. That's 410-486-5575.
Did want to ask you about the linebacker core. I mean, Roquan got a lot of accolades last year, but he had some rough moments. And that linebacker core, that's part of the spine that John Harbaugh likes to talk about with the Ravens defense, up the middle, between the free safety, Kyle Hamilton, and the first line of defense, guys like Roquan. Will that be solidified with this linebacker group?
It depends on Mike Green and the way he progresses. The rookie second-round pick out of Marshall. I like what they have. I like Owe. I like Van Noy. But in big games, they don't get it done. You can go back and look at the film and say, hey, where's the guy who's going to get this sack? Even if you're going to get double-teamed or whatever, or somebody's going to chip block you, can you make that sack? They still don't have that guy. Can it be Mike Green? Possibly, but I don't expect a whole lot out of him during his rookie season because, again, he gets tired. It's going to, by the end of the season, he's going to be really tired. I like his motor. I like his work ethic, but I'm not sure he's going to be the guy that produces 10 to 12 sacks this season. They still have a need there. Inside, Roquan is still the guy. He struggled early because Trent Simpson, the other guy who was playing weak side linebacker, couldn't cover. All right. And Kansas City came out, and right off the bat, they went right after Roquan. They went right after Trent Simpson. He got better in the last game against the Commanders in the preseason game. Now it has to carry over. He was the only starter to play in that game for the entire game. All right. That tells you something like, buddy, you better step it up because your career might be on the line. And he did. It played well. Well, let's see what happens now because you go into the regular season and you show the spark. Does it carry over?
Well, you nailed it with Mike Green. He's got a high motor, but a lot unknown because, again, he's just a rookie, but he puts it together. If he records 10 sacks, he's Defensive Rookie of the Year. Let's hope he can get there.
Let's put it to you this way. Mike Green has one move, speed, outside. All right, until he develops 2 or 3 moves where this one doesn't work, the speed doesn't work. All right, let's come back and let's do a swim. Let's do an arm rip. Give me something, but just only have one move. And sometimes when he goes in the middle, because they'll stun and cross him, he gets lost. And that's just a size difference. Once you get in the weight room, you get bigger in the offseason, then you don't get lost as much, but he kind of gets pushed around. So we'll see what happens. But if he gets 10 to 12 sacks, yes, he should be Defensive Rookie of the Year.
More of the BMore Football Podcast right after this.
We hope you never need us, but if you're ever injured in an accident, we'll handle everything with trusted guidance and personal attention so you can focus on what matters most, your recovery. Rice Law. Best advice, call Rice.
RiceLawMD.com.
Shop Maryland's largest adult use and medical cannabis menu located at 1114 Cathedral Street in Baltimore, with medical delivery available throughout Maryland 7 days a week, only at Relief Shop.
For the last 25 years, Wood Home Insurance has been Baltimore's premier independent home, auto, and business insurance broker, representing over 30 carriers. For example, need an auto quote? Wood Home shops them all. Geico, Progressive, Travelers, AAA, Safeco, and Selective, and sends you back the best rates possible. I have personally been a client for over 2 decades, and they are world-class in service. Wood Home's owner, Rich Gottlieb, is happy to schedule a Zoom appointment with you at your convenience. Oh, and Rich is a longtime Ravens season ticket holder, so when at the game, let him know where you're tailgating. He'll drop by and say hello. So for all your needs, it's Wood Home Insurance, 410-580-2800 or woodhomeinsurance.com.
Meet the newest member of the Jack Daniels family, Jack Daniels Tennessee Blackberry. Jack Daniels takes pride in Old Number 7 being the backbone of all our flavors, and Jack Daniels Blackberry is no exception. A combination of our proprietary black liqueur and Jack Daniels' unique and unmistakable character, Jack Blackberry is a highly versatile juxtaposition of flavor. Delightfully sweet, bold, vibrant, and refreshing, Jack Blackberry is easily enjoyed with your favorite mixer, in a cocktail, or while enjoying your next football game. Jack Daniels Tennessee Blackberry is here, and as always, Jack Daniels reminds you to drink responsibly. When it comes to financial planning, most of us need help. The team at the Jim Kelly Financial Group has been offering sage advice for Marylanders for more than 30 years, like the Baltimore Sun's Mike Preston. But Jim Kelly offers value beyond sound investment management through tax-efficient strategies, behavioral coaching during market downturns, guidance on major life decisions, from career changes to elder care planning, as well as life insurance. This is where experienced financial advisors like Jim Kelly and the professional money management he provides can make all the difference. Call today and see if the Jim Kelly Financial Group can help you and your family at 410-486-5575. That's 410-486-5575.
No doubt about that. All right, let's advance to Baltimore and beyond, which will be sponsored by our friends at Relief Shop, Baltimore's best adult use and medical cannabis dispensary, with 700 plus unique menu items and home delivery available for medical patients, courtesy of Relief Shop. All right, Presto, let's take a look around the rest of the AFC North. For me, once again, and you may have a differing opinion, but it's the Steelers and the Ravens, and then the Bengals and the Browns. Pittsburgh has added Aaron Rodgers. He's taken over for the ineffective Russell Wilson. Will they be the Ravens' biggest challenger, or is it someone else?
It's the Steelers. I mean, they loaded up. I mean, you look at some of the guys they brought in. Ramsey, Slay, they brought in Metcalf, Aaron Rodgers. They're basically saying, we think we have enough to get and win a playoff game. Now, whether they do that or not sure, but I like that Mike Tomlin, Aaron Rodgers combination, and people can say whatever they want. Mike Tomlin is a very good football coach, and he's established himself in this league. If there's a guy who's going to kind of smack Aaron Rodgers around a little bit, it would be Mike Tomlin, and I would be surprised if he asked him to go out to the parking lot a little bit and said, let's settle this, because that's the way he coaches. I like his fire, but they've added these people and they got them in place. They're going to make a run. I don't know how successful they'll be, but they will challenge the Ravens for superiority in the AFC North.
Then comes the Bengals. They want to get out to that quick start. They really, some would say, overplayed their starters during the preseason. Their owner is very cheap. Ask their current or former players. I mean, they're charging Boomer Esiason to come back for his Ring of Honor celebration. They want him to pay for his own hotel room and flight. But besides their cheapness, I mean, what do you anticipate from the Bengals?
The Bengals, they're going to score a lot of points. They remind me of the Ravens in 96, 97. Remember, they would score 42 points and lose 43, 40-2. That's what the Bengals have in line. They have no defense, absolutely none. But they would score a lot of points. Is that good enough for the fan base in Cincinnati? No, it's never good enough. I mean, you got to win games. Cleveland, if you have 4 quarterbacks or 5 quarterbacks, that means you don't have one quarterback. Yes. That's just the way it is. And they can shuffle all these guys around. And I will give Joe Flacco credit because the other day when I watched him play, Joe was lighting it up. Man, he threw some nice balls. But what happens when they start getting pressure on you? You're 40, 41 years old. The Ravens should be able to get after him. So it's Pittsburgh and Baltimore.
Yeah, I don't know if Joe is going to be able to rise above that stink in Cleveland.
Yeah, I agree with you.
It's going to be tough. All right. Let's make the transition from the Browns to the NFL's bad organizations kind of appropriate because we really have all the regulars seemingly every season. We mentioned the Browns. I can't not mention the Cowboys, the Giants, the Jets, Aaron Rodgers' former team, Carolina, Vegas. What's a common denominator among all these teams? Poor ownership. I probably should throw in Arizona as well. Am I missing anyone? I don't know. But, I mean, when you look at these teams, it really goes back to ownership. And we can start with Dallas because they embrace this, at least their owner does. He wants a soap opera atmosphere. Yet this team, despite being all over national television because they have an immense following, hasn't won a championship in over 2 decades.
Well, let's take it further than ownership. Let's go into the front office. Let's go into scouting. There's a reason why the Ravens beat up on these teams in preseason because their scouting department does a very good job. I mean, and you've seen that in the last 2 weeks. They're very good at what they do. And notice the transitions from Phil Savage to Ozzie Newsome, or Ozzie Newsome to Phil Savage, and then Eric DeCosta. They keep their guys in place. George Kakinas, he left but came back. It's the same group. So they're comfortable with each other. And ownership, here's one thing you need to remember about Steve Bisciotti, okay? He would rather have a head coach that he gets along with, that he can trust, than just bringing in a new guy all the time. And he stated that years ago when he gave Harbaugh the contract, says, I want to be like the Pittsburgh Steelers. I want to be consistent. Well, that's what they've done. They are very consistent. They're usually up there, whether they win or lose or whatever. They challenge every year. So it isn't just about ownership. It's about front office. It's about what you do. It's about continuity. And the Ravens haven't missed a beat. And I'll say this, and Jerry, and you know I'm not a guy who's just going to jump on the bandwagon.
No.
The Ravens are, they might be the best organization in the National Football League. That's just the way it is, and that's the way that they're run.
Well, the way they treat their current and former players, many can attest to that, and that reputation speaks for itself. I mean, a lot of guys want to come and play here.
Yeah, and Jerry, let's take it a step further. If there are a good 8 to 10 teams in the National Football League, you name them, because there's only 8 to 10. Yeah. And that's a rough guess because the rest of them are pretty bad. They're pretty poorly run, and you can attribute it to a lot of things, but they're not very good. And that's just the way the NFL is set up. And, you know, you try to work these things where if you finish last, you get these draft picks or you get a number of early picks. And some of them can't even get the draft picks right. No. I mean, look at the Colts. They couldn't get the draft pick right. So
Anthony Richardson is certainly not the guy.
No, and he won't be the guy. And then they have the other guy from Duke, Jones. Is that the quarterback there?
Jones, yes.
No, he's not going to get it done either.
Yeah, that's what bad organizations do.
Yes.
All right, back to the Ravens, Mike. So what is their next order of business? We know the roster cuts are going to be made this week. Do you think additions still could come to the roster before that opener in Buffalo?
It all depends on injuries. They're pretty much set. This roster's done. Can they improve? It depends on other people, other teams, who they cut, who they look at, and if they have injuries. Because No one can look into the crystal ball and say, oh, we're going to have this injury, that injury, whatever. Okay. But again, Eric DeCosta has already come out and said, we need a high number of cornerbacks, defensive backs at the give me. Ozzie Newsome always used to say, I need more defensive linemen. That's a Bill Belichick role right there. He will go out and they will make sure they have enough defensive linemen. So those guys are in place. But again, it comes back to their offensive line. They cannot afford to have 2 or 3 major injuries on their offensive line, or they're in trouble.
Well, we just got finished with the preseason, which was 3 games. I'm old enough to remember where the third preseason game was always called the all-important third preseason game. Now they're all meaningless. How much longer until we get rid of the charade altogether?
Oh, I've talked to a couple front office people up in that press box the other day. He said, it's coming. It's coming. We're going to shrink down to 3 to 2. And then eventually they'll add a regular season game and then get rid of the other 2. They don't need these. I mean, 4 weeks in the training camp and you can't decide who are the starters or who are the guys who are going to contribute. Are you kidding me? And all the film these guys watch, I could do that. And I'm not a head coach, but I could do that. They know. So it will happen. They'll cut it down.
Yeah, I can hear that cash register ringing at the NFL offices on Park Avenue as they add that 18th regular season game coming soon. No doubt about that. All right, we're going to be back next Monday to get you ready for that primetime opener in Buffalo. Mike will certainly be in what I refer to as the city of losers. The teams, not the people in Buffalo. I want to clarify that. It's the teams in Buffalo, the Sabres, and of course the Bills. They're for our lifetime, no matter how old you are, whether you're 12 or 112. But Buffalo in September is a whole lot better than Buffalo in December or January. I will say that. I mean, 9 or 10 months out of the year, you can't even visit the city of Buffalo. It's just unvisitable.
Jerry, you're going to a place that I dare not go.
All right. I think we got All right. Until next time, please tell your friends and even enemies about this new podcast. Subscribe at BMore Sports Pod. That's BMore Sports Pod. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see it. And we look forward to next week as we get closer to the opener. It is the first edition. 1 down, 24 to go at least. The BMore Football Podcast presented by Rice Law, with yours truly, Jerry Coleman, and the Baltimore Sun's Mike Preston. We'll see you fellas next week.
The BMore Football Podcast is brought to you by Rice Law.